Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, sir. Sir, namaste. Welcome to गुजरात साइंस सिटी. गुजरात साइंस सिटी में आज हम लोग वाइल्ड लाइफ वीक और स्पेस वीक का सेलिब्रेशन कर रहे हैं. और आज 8 अक्टूबर है, मतलब वाइल्ड लाइफ वीक का लास्ट डे है. मतलब हम लोग जो वाइल्ड लाइफ वीक सेलिब्रेट करते हैं 2 to 8 अक्टूबर, और स्पेस वीक जो है 4 to 10 अक्टूबर. तो आज इसी मौके पर हम लोगों ने एक लेक्चर रखा है, इंटरेक्टिव सेशन. तो लेक्चर का जो मेन टॉपिक है, रोल ऑफ आईसीटी इन वाइल्ड लाइफ. और आप सबको पहले तो गुजरात साइंस सिटी के प्लेटफॉर्म पर आप सबको वेलकम करता हूँ. आज के जो हमारे एक्सपर्ट हैं उनको भी वेलकम करते हैं. आज के जो एक्सपर्ट है अनिल रॉय सर, डॉक्टर अनिल रॉय सर. सर वेलकम.
थैंक यू पुलकेश.
मैं सर का थोड़ा शॉर्ट बायोडाटा पहले तो सर का इंट्रोडक्शन दे देता हूँ. वैसे तो मैं सर का इंट्रोडक्शन देने जाऊँगा तो आधा घंटा उसमें जाएगा. सर इज अ प्रोफेसर इन DAICT गांधीनगर since 2003. Sir is a very senior expert and very much curious about the IT field. Sir is a expert in IT field. So sir is a committee member in our upcoming robotics gallery committee member. So I request to sir for interactive session. Sir, please.
So thank you very much, Pulkesh, for introducing me. So may I request you to switch off your mic?
Yes, sir.
There is a noise from your.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thanks. Thank you very much. So I must thank the management of Gujarat Science City to invite me for this session. Though I am not very, I am not present on Facebook, but still I wish that you are going to have a nice time while interacting with me through Pulkesh or through some representative of Science City. Before I start my talk, let me give you some assumptions that I have made while working on or while preparing this talk for you. So I assumed that most of the audience is a school kid, and therefore I have kept the tone and level of discussion or my presentation to a degree so that you can understand it pretty well. If there are experts who are also attending this session, then please excuse me because many of these things might look very trivial to you, but my main focus or objective was to address the students through this session, and therefore the content was has been kept at that level. So let me share my screen with you. Abhishek. पता नहीं हुआ कि नहीं. हाँ. So is my screen visible there? Pulkesh?
No, sir. No, sir.
No. Abhishek. क्या? ये? So is it
Yes,
visible
sir.
now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Fine, sir.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. So I have made it in slide view mode.
Ji, sir.
So is it okay? Visible and legible? You
Yes,
can
sir.
read also?
Yes, sir. Fine, sir.
Okay. Okay. So let us start. Let us start. It is 3:10. So the topic that you might have been communicated is role of ICT in wildlife, and this is a typical visual that I have kept for you to understand how technology has become pervasive in wildlife preservation or conservation also. So before we start, let us see this movie. It is a 3-minute clip, winged migration. अभिषेक ये तो नहीं. So is a movie clip screen visible there?
We shared in their dramas. And their greatest successes.
Okay. So this is a movie that I love watching all the time. So can somebody tell me how this movie possibly was filmed? However, the problem with this virtual event that it remains one-sided, but you can very well visualize that there are aerial footage that have been captured, and if you make some effort, you can tell me that there was some aerial vehicle, so maybe some flight or some unmanned vehicle or some aerial object like hot air balloon might be flying side by side of these birds, and on those aerial objects there must be some camera which was filming them. So this is one typical example of pervasiveness of ICT technology in wildlife domain. So let us first understand what ICT is. So ICT is an acronym for 3 terms: information, communication, and technology. So what is information? So if you understand data, and these days there are abundance of data that are flowing in and out everybody's life, and when we make a sensible use of those data, those are first getting converted into information, and when we use that information into a wider scope of things, then that becomes knowledge. So data, information, knowledge, these are 3 connected terms. So data is the raw information, then I make it, convert it into a useful information, and then I convert it into knowledge. So that is the part of information. Once I have that information, then either I can keep that information with me, don't let anybody use that, don't let anybody know about that information. So that is my, like I have some wealth and I want to preserve that wealth. I don't want to distribute or share that wealth. So that is one type of wealth creation that is a private matter. But in form of information, it is always good if you share that. So while sharing that information among people at large, you have to communicate. And for that communication, this second term comes. So there are various techniques of communication. These days, everybody is knowing, everybody is using mobile phone. So mobile communication is a way of communication. In the TV that you see various programs, news, film, serials. That is a TV communication or satellite communication. In the class, when a teacher teaches you, that is a verbal communication. So there are various ways and means of communication for letting one information flow from one end to another end for some intended use. So that is part of communication. And technology that combines these two, so information and communication. So if I have to communicate, I have to use some technology. So like these days, you might have been listening to the term 5G, or your phone network is on 4G, or maybe in the earlier days, it was on 3G. So those are the technologies of communication by which we can send data from one place to another place, or we can send or share information from one end to another end. So this is the role of technology, which makes a highway between these two objectives. So this is in a layman's term, what we mean by ICT. So in communication, electronics becomes very, very important, and that many of you might be wondering or might be aspiring for doing engineering program in computer science, electronics and communication. So these are actually the verticals of ICT engineering. Now, in the topic of today, there is name is use of ICT in wildlife. So let us spend 1 minute time in wildlife. However, I assume that all of you understand wildlife. But still, if you go to Wikipedia and get the definition or try to get the definition of wildlife, you may see that it is a group of animal species which are undomesticated. So it means there are domesticated animal species like cows, goats, rats, dogs, many of cats also are domesticated animals. If you go to US, you will find that people have domesticated pigs also. So those are domesticated animals. So those are not part of wildlife. In wildlife, those are undomesticated animal species: lions, tigers, elephants, bear, jackal. So these are the wildlife examples. So wildlife can be found in all type of ecosystems: desert, forest, rainforest, plains, grassland. And if you are curious to know about these wildlife, I suggest you to look into or to see the channels. Just a minute. So this is the Microsoft problem. I have Microsoft Windows, and this platform is Microsoft. Since the version is older in my computer, it prompts me. So these are invasion of privacy. Anyway, so you can find these wildlife in any place. So I was suggesting you to see the channels of National Geographic, the channels of History Channel, National Geographic, and there are other channels also which gives you details of, or which gives you or makes you aware of these wildlife lives. So if in the last slide, I told you that these are undomesticated animal species. So on Earth, there are 1.4 million named species which exist, which we know. There might be many more which exist, but we don't know. And estimated is that 3 to 50 million species are alive. So we have named these many, but there are so many species which are there on the Earth. So the civilization, as the civilization grew, we must understand that this is a very intricate relationship with nature. Then only we can survive. So for our survival, it is very important that we must preserve or conserve wildlife as well as biodiversity for our own, in our own interest. Otherwise, we cannot survive for long. Like this pandemic situation is one such example that a very small virus, which has a size of a nano scale, is making our life hell because we don't understand. We have not incohabited with that virus, and therefore that virus has become an alien for us, and that is killing us, or at least there is a threat that would kill us. So to survive, we need to coexist, and to coexist, we need to preserve or conserve this wildlife. That is an investment from mankind for the nature. So a typical setup showing the tools of technology might be these type of things through which we can connect from one place to another place to flow our information, particularly related to wildlife. We are focusing in our scoping ourselves, curtailing our scope only for the wildlife. So these are the typical devices that we might use. So let us start with some examples of how ICT is pervasive, or ICT is playing a role for in the domain of wildlife. So let us assume, imagine a jungle situation where there are many animals are there. And so let us take example of Gir forest, where there is a national park for Gir lion. So we have to preserve that lion. So we need to understand what is the movement of those lions, whether those lions are attacked or under threat by some other animal or human being. How do they move? Where do they get water, or where do they come for water but they don't get water? So we have to make arrangement for water for them. What are the threats for those lions within the jungle area, forest area, which we need to eliminate so that they can live there peacefully and for longer duration of time? So for all these, we need to know how these lions move. That cannot be done by a person because it is not possible. It is not possible. Either the lion will eat or kill that person, or the lion cannot be caught by that person in the way the lions move. So we need to have unmanned eyes spying on these lions. So that spying is being done by these cameras. And these cameras are known as trail camera because these trail the movement of animals within the forest area. So these trail cameras actually are nothing but, technically, these are nothing but PIR sensors. So passive infrared sensors. IR is infrared, and it is passive because it does not take part. It is not active, so it is passive. So this is passive infrared sensor. And why we use infrared sensor? Because any live body radiates heat, and that heat falls under the spectrum of radiation in IR spectrum. So if a person or an animal is coming or going, it is radiating that energy or heat in IR spectrum. So we require an IR sensor to know that there is something coming or going. Live body. Dead bodies do not radiate heat. So this passive infrared sensor is fitted in this camera, and rest other tools are similar to a camera. So there is a flash, there is a shutter, there is everything, or it is, if it is a digital camera, then there are arrangement of digital camera there, other than this PIR sensor. So this is a typical PIR camera in jungle or in forest environment, and therefore it is camouflaged so that the animals should not make out that there is something which is watching them. So when that IR radiation, so there are two filters there, or windows there in this sensor, and there is an electronics working behind that subtracts these IR radiations that are captured by these two windows. So when there is nothing other than the background, then each window is capturing similar intensity of that IR radiation. And when I subtract, there is 0, which is read by that camera. But when a body comes in the field of view of this camera, then the first window will get more radiation. First window means the window from which side that body is coming. So that will get immediately more radiation, and the other side will not. So when I subtract, then there is a substantial positive result that the camera understands. And the trigger is that there is some animal which is coming in the view of that camera, and the shutter will start functioning, and I capture that photo of that frame in which that animal is there. So the shutter speed, we trigger it by program, and it triggers very fast, so that the complete movement or trail of that animal in the frame of that camera can be captured. So from this second image, you can see that if the field of view is larger, then the horizontal distance that this camera will capture is more, but at the cost of the smaller size of the animal, which is going to be evident in the next slide. So here you can see that if the field of view is 10 minutes, then you can get a bigger size of the animal captured by that camera, and it is getting reduced from 10 minutes to 20 minutes, 20 minutes to 30 minutes, and you are seeing that the horizontal scope or field of depth of view is increasing, and therefore the size of the animal, which is your intended target, is reducing. So from 10 minutes to 60 minutes, you can see that you can hardly make out that there was some animal. Since it was a bigger size of animal, therefore you can make out. But consider or imagine that there was a rabbit in the screen or moving there, so you cannot make out after a while that the rabbit was passing through the field of view of that camera. So that are the challenges, but still this trail camera can capture the movement of animal in the forest, in wilderness, complete wilderness. There is no human intervention. So they are not afraid, or they are not running away from anything. They are living in their original life. So these are some of the typical images that are captured by those trail camera. You can see that you can get a grayscale image also. So in the night where there is no light, these are IR capturing. So these are grayscale. In the day, these are the colored images captured in the daylight. So you can make out that when it is night and when it is day. So these trail camera actually builds the database of wildlife. How many type of animals are there? And in such cases, many a times you can get to know about some strange species that you are not aware of or you are not familiar of, that these species are also available or found in this flora and fauna. So many a times you can get some exotic butterfly or some exotic small insects in your forest area which were not known earlier, and then that becomes a news. Now, the second example that I'm taking here is of augmented reality or virtual reality or mixed reality. You might have heard these terms. So the virtual reality is completely a virtual thing. It is not there, but it is made to appear there, and therefore we call it virtual reality. In augmented reality, that virtual part is augmented, so it's stitched over your real scenario. So like you are sitting in your living room, and I have to create an augmented reality type of situation of a sea beach. Then what I will ask you? I will ask you to put on a Google Glass type of thing, or a virtual reality or augmented reality glass on your eyes, and you can see that there is a sea beach in that many sea animals and oceanic scenes are emerging in that screen of that glass that you are putting on. So that is augmented reality. And a recent term is mixed reality. That this mixed reality term has become very popular in form of tourism. So again, taking example of the current scenario of pandemic, in which you are not allowed to go out of any of your house, and you are not allowed actually to go to some national park to see the wildlife in wilderness, then it becomes the responsibility of tourism department to make those scenes available to you at your residence. And that is the mixed reality. So in many of museums, in many of science cities type of locations, these mixed reality applications have become vogue these days, in which we are letting our visitors to experience. So this experience is called immersive experience. So you are completely immersed into that situation. You forget about your surrounding, that you are sitting in Ahmedabad. It can take you to Kenya, their national park, where you can see a huge tusker running towards you, or you can see a huge lion roaring at a distance from you, and you will be thrilled to see that. For that moment, you are completely immersed into that scenario. And when that goes off, then you come back to your reality, and you find that you are sitting in your living room, or in the science city of Ahmedabad, or some such uh, location. So I have taken these two screenshots for you to understand. In first case, you can see that these are the people who are visiting this museum, and from mixed reality or augmented reality technology, using that technology, this dinosaur, or rather rhinoceros, is passing through, and these people are completely thrilled, excited, captivated by seeing this rhinoceros there. Actually, there is no rhinoceros, but you feel like that a rhinoceros is passing just in front of you. In this, there is some different type of situation. This is mixed reality. You can see that a mother-daughter pair is here. This is the real mother-daughter. And in the screen, you are seeing the same mother-daughter. So there is a camera in front of them. And this leopard is made to move in front of these two people virtually, or we have technology has augmented this leopard so that this kid thinks that there is a leopard which is passing just in front of her, and she is feeling or experiencing by patting or by moving her fingers on the skin or on the shoulder or on the back of this leopard, and she is just experienced as real as it could be. So this is another example of role of ICT in wildlife, in which you can experience the real thing, the joy, thrill of reality, just by sitting in one concrete room, and the ambience is created by the technology. And this is going to be a huge breakthrough. Rather, this has broken through, not will be a breakthrough. This has broken through in tourism context in many places and in museums. Now I will take you to another area of latest technology. You might have heard the name of artificial intelligence. You might have heard, if you are slightly older generation school kids, so 11th, 12th type of students, then you might have listened about machine learning, deep learning. These are the most popular technological terms for your generation these days. And I will give you some examples how artificial intelligence or machine learning or deep learning are relevant to wildlife these days. So before we go to that application, let us understand just briefly in layman's term, what is artificial intelligence, what is machine learning, what is deep learning. So as this Venn diagram says, that artificial intelligence is the superset. Machine learning is part of that, well within that. And deep learning is even within machine learning domain. And each has some pros, some cons, some advantage, some disadvantages. So let us spend 2-3 minutes on these three terms, and then you can relate how artificial intelligence or machine learning or deep learning are relevant to wildlife these days. So as name suggests, artificial intelligence is creating intelligence artificially or through machines. The real objective is that creating intelligence through machine. So for that, you need not be intelligent. Your machine will use its intelligence based on some algorithm, based on some logic that is fed into that machine, and it will give you some decision without any human intervention. So that is the function of human brain, in which by which we can take certain decisions, by which we understand things. So that is now created by machines for you, and that is called artificial intelligence. In machine learning, again, machine is the computer, you can say, or you can take. So in machine learning, what do? We take data, we make that machine learn from the data. So we feed the data with some logic that, look, this type of face is of this type of face is of when you see this face, this is Anil. When you see this face, this is Pulkit. When you see this face, this is Dr. Vora. So this is, I am feeding this into the machine. And based on the data, now machine can tell me how many times Anil has come, how many times Pulkit has appeared, how many times Dr. Vora is coming to address you. So no third person is required to make this decision or to let you know that when Anil came or when somebody else came. So in this way, when we feed data to machine to learn some of the properties of or features, not properties, in machine learning we call feature. So some of the features of that event, then that falls under machine learning. But the limitation of machine learning is that when the data is in form of tabular data, so let us say I feed the data of PM5 pollution or sunrise sunset or temperature data of various cities of Gujarat of last 10 years, 15 years. And then I ask the machine to predict what the temperature is going to be in 2021 on 8th of October, then my computer can tell me. Because that data is in form of tabular data, those are numbers, and based on those numbers, I have trained my machine to understand that for last 100 years or 50 years or 10 years, how temperature varies in October month, how in September, in November. And so based on the complete scenario, now my machine can tell me what is the temperature going to be in the next year or in the next day. What is the humidity going to be? What is the rain prediction? So rain prediction is done by this type of algorithm. But this algorithm fails when we go for face recognition or speech recognition. A very typical example for face recognition, that I feed the information to the machine that a face consists of a pair of eyes, a nose, a pair of lips, chin. So these are the typical features of a face. But if I fail to define or train the machine that the nose has to be in between eyes, and what is the location or coordinate of the nose, what is the proportion of nose with eye and lips, location wise, then any such combination. So if the eyes are coming lower and lips are sent to your forehead, ears are thrown to your two cheeks, chin is on top of your skull, still the machine may tell me that this is a face. So face recognition, speech recognition, these are some of the troubled areas for machine learning problem. And in that case, we require an expert's intervention for machine to let you know the right decision or conclusion, arrive upon the right conclusion. Then comes deep learning, which I showed in that earlier slide, that deep learning is still completely inside machine learning. So it is a part of machine. But the beauty of deep learning is that in this, machine learns itself. You need not to have an expert telling you whether this is a face or not, whether this is a ghost or a human being. No, you don't require an expert. Machine itself learns. So out of 1,000 data fed to the machine, if in 999 cases, machine sees that this is the proportion of eye and nose and lips, location wise and area wise, then for the 1,000 wrong data even, the machine knows what a face looks like. And the moment you feed 1,000 first data face to the machine, it says you, or it should be in a position to tell you whether that is a face or not a face. So that is deep learning, in which machine learns itself based on the type of data and type of benchmark data that you are feeding into it, and it gives you the right decision with a very high accuracy, very high accuracy. Now, you might be thinking why I am telling you all these things, what it has relation with wildlife. In wildlife, many a times we require to classify the complexity of the species present in that ecosystem or in that region or in that forest, in that national park. So how can I do that? I cannot run after each and every species, getting the photos of theirs, coming back to my lab, and then differentiating whether that is an owl or that is a kite or that is an eagle or that is what, parrot? No, I need not do that. So what I do, I take continuously pictures of that scenario or a larger geographical area. That picture can be taken by satellite images. That pictures can be taken by those trail cameras that I have put in the forest environment. So source could be anything, but when that are with me, then I subtract the background. I take out only the picture of the animal from that background. And then based on this technique of deep learning, I can classify. I can classify accurately. But that accuracy depends upon the size of the data. If you give only 10 data, then accuracy level will be low. But if you give 2 million data, 2 million such images, then accuracy will rise up to over 99%, 99.7% even. So for that classification of wildlife, we require deep learning technique, and therefore I gave you the background of deep learning application or deep learning. What is deep learning? To make you understand that if I have various images, how can I distinguish and differentiate which image is of which species? Okay. Now, artificial intelligence. So use of artificial intelligence is mostly, or one of the uses of artificial intelligence is for wildlife crime prevention. And this is a typical image in which I have shown that what type of, from the ivory of tuskers, elephants, you might be finding various type of artifacts that are sold in the market at a very high cost, very high, not cost, price. From birds, you can find many things. The horn of rhino can protect you from cancers, and therefore we poach these rhinos in the forest just for taking this one single piece of horn from these poor creatures. Snake skin, you know, that ladies' purse once upon a time. These days, these are now actually considered as illegal activities, crimes, and you can be behind bar for using snake skin purse. But snakes are butchered by these poachers just for getting their skin. This is ivory of tusker. Many wool. So pashmina wool is taken from animal skins. So these are some of the examples in which we kill the animals for making for selling their body parts or some products from their body part in the market. And it is estimated, even in these days, the market size is $10 billion. And if you don't understand what is dollar or billion, then it is around 70,000 crore rupees of market of these illegal products in the which is available. So to prevent these crimes or illegal activities, we require artificial intelligence. And what how artificial intelligence works here is that it creates some game based on the activities and movement of group of people in these areas where these animals are found. And these computer models actually, depending upon that group's human being group movement or behavior, they can predict that now they are going for poaching, and now it is very likely that they are going to kill some animal in the forest, and they prompt a warning to the nearby police station, and they can come and either they can catch them red-handed or they can prevent those crimes before it could happen. So this is the artificial intelligence in which by making some game or using game theory, we can predict the behavior of people roaming around those forest areas, and so that these things can be contained or prevented. You have heard the name of drones, and from drones, you can create a local application for watching these. So there are cases in Thailand and in Vietnam, which are where people are notorious to kill many exotic wildlife species just for petty gain. So by using drones, the local police can very well feed the data to their mobile app, and from that they can keep a watch on the activities of people, and timely prevention can be attained or can be presented. One interesting technology, ICT application, is through Global Positioning System, GPS. This is a beautiful picture of a spider monkey, which is found in North America, South America, or Central America area. So as the name suggests, this is Global Positioning System. So by using this Global Positioning System, we can again keep track of the movement of these animals. So in next few slides, I can tell you, or I have narrated you stories of some such projects that are making wonders in preserving these wildlife, which are either about to get extinct or which are endangered species these days, and which conservation is a high priority for human being also. So this leatherback sea turtle, so what happens that when these fishers goes into the deep sea to catch fishes, these turtles also get into the net of these fisheries ships. So by technology, what do? We can track what are the hot spots of these turtles where they are currently conversed or in high number, available in high number. And then the government announced in advance to these fisheries families or ships not to go to that area for certain time period, so that these tussle or these conflicts can be avoided, and these leatherback sea turtle can be protected. So this is one typical example. So these red areas, red spots, are the hot spots of their concentration. So by knowing this, using the GPS technology, by knowing these areas, now government will announce that in this area, for this particular time period, fishing is to be avoided or fishing is banned. And then nobody can be allowed or is allowed to go into that area, and we can save. This is that leatherback sea turtle, and we can protect these. This is endangered species, and this is how we preserve these species. Another example is loggerhead protection. So in this case, these are turtle which lay their eggs on the seashore. So what do? We keep some sensors in the sand to keep track of or to read the temperature of the sand and at the depth in which these eggs are laid, and whether that temperature is suitable for hatching or not. If it is suitable and if there is some appropriate time in advance, we could know by studying this service or this application, we can predict that when these turtles are now about to be hatched. So when these turtles are hatched, if you see National Geographic Channel on some episode on these turtles, you can find that these are in thousands and thousands of numbers and running from the beach towards the sea. So at that time, they to protect these turtles from killing by presence of people, they ban those areas for people to move. So this is another good example of technological intervention to preserve or to protect these wildlife for their protection. Another example is for these Cape vulture, and in this case, what do we do by using this GPS technology? We know where these vultures are moving and what is the impact of food chain. By that, where there is a dead body is there, or so all the complete cycle of food chain related to vulture can be monitored by using this GPS technology for that. Satellite images are again different and a very useful thing. So this is one satellite image in which you can see the daylight image of one particular region. And this is another type of satellite image in which the height is more, resolution is less, so you cannot make out much. But again, these images can be studied through image processing techniques to know where there is life, where there is what type of biodiversities are there. So all these studies can be done using technology of wildlife. This is the impact of deforestation that is studied. Again, the deforestation study is important for wildlife preservation or conservation. And these image processing or satellite image processing techniques become very handy in understanding these. And based on this study, government may announce some policy for protecting the forest and thereby ultimately for protecting the wildlife. These are some samples that I have collected for you to make you understand that look from 1940 to 1983, how these forests or green areas have depleted over Costa Rica region. So this is very alarming situation. And if we are not sensitive towards this, then maybe after 3-4 generations, we might be missing 70-80% of wildlife species which are available in your generation. This is again the study or comparison of some land over different period of time. So in the left image, you can see that there is more greenery, there are more trees available there, there are more water body available there. And in the right, you can see that because of either urbanization or deforestation, there is land which have no green coverage. You can study the direction of river and water content, and that again is very important for understanding how these wildlife are going to move, because unless there is naturally occurring or present water, it is very difficult for them to survive. And so the river direction and water body content study is again very important intervention of technology or ICT for wildlife area. RFID stands for radio frequency ID, identification. So in these images, you can see that mostly for ornithology, so or study of birds, we require these RFID. So this is an RFID tag. This is an RFID tag. This is an RFID tag being put on this kingfisher, or I don't know what species of bird is this. So, but we are putting on this RFID tag, and then we will leave it. So wherever now it will go, it will radiate that radio frequency transmission to our data logger. And from there, we can understand where it is flying, where it is going, where it is nesting. So all information of that bird I can capture through RFID technique. Even that can be put on bees also. So by these days, by miniaturization of electronics, these all can be possible in any form, at any scale, from micro to millimeter to centimeter scale. And that is a beautiful intervention example of technology for tracking these animals, insects, birds in wilderness. We preserve sound also of various species. From there, we can find out that a new species is found in this particular area. One good example is this, which was found, which was assumed to be extinct in Puerto region, but recently, by capturing the soundtrack of this frog, they got to know that it is not extinct, but it is highly endangered species. So this is a complicated layout of sound tracking or sound recording system. Just to make you understand that technological intervention is not just storytelling, but behind that many things goes into a very intensive technological mess that we adopt or that we implement. And this is the last, I think, slide for you, because you are so active, your generation is so active on social media, website, application, mobile apps, that you can share. And by sharing these contents, you are actually doing good for the society, that you are making them aware of, making them sensitized about the importance of those wildlife. And that is also helping us preserve or protect, make them safe for generations to come. So these are the hot links of wildlife area that you can see: Nature, Discovery, WWF, National Geographic, where you can find beautiful content about these wildlife and technological intervention for either conservation of wildlife or protecting them, or to reduce the crime, or to reduce illegal poaching of these species. So every information are available. Most of those information are available on these pages, which I suggest you to go through regularly, which will keep you sensitized for this. And that is all which I have to present. Thank you very much for your attention. This is one-way communication again, and I don't know how many of you have gone through it or stayed back with me, but thank you very much for your attention, whosoever is right now on this platform. So over to Pulkit.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Sir, we receive some questions.
Right.
Sir, first question is, sir, ICT technology is a costly or a cheapest for wildlife conservation?
Just a minute.
Ji,
Let
sir.
me come back to my. So is my camera on, Pulkit?
No, no, sir. Off, sir.
Hmm.
Please on your camera, sir. Please turn
How
on.
can I? So first I have to stop sharing.
Stop sharing, sir. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Now I can make my camera on.
Turn on your
Okay.
camera, sir. Yes, sir. Yes.
Now I am on. So could you please repeat your question?
Yes, sir. Sir, question from one participant. Sir, ICT technology is costly or cheapest for wildlife conservation?
Oh, so that depends upon your application, my friend.
Yes.
I can make a very cost-effective application also, and depending on if you are using satellite imagery, so if you have to launch your own satellite, what Google does, Google is spying on everything. So if you are owning a satellite for some particular study, then that is the costliest application for wildlife conservation. But yes, for endangered species, many a time it becomes very costly when you have to track down the GPS data,
Yes,
and when you have to actually follow through or trail behind the turtle or the vulture that you try to protect, then it becomes
yes,
so it depends upon your application.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Sir, second question is, sir, ICT technology is harmful for animals and birds?
Look, the RFID that I showed you, if you keep the intensity of that radio frequency
Yes, sir.
wave frequency signal, it might be harmful. But then, look, the beauty of a scientist is that we create technologies or applications based on the requirement or based on the environment where it is going to be used. So if I have to track a small bird, I know what type of device or what intensity of the signal I have to keep so that it won't harm that
Yes, sir.
bird or space. So the answer to your question is yes and no also, both.
Sir, I think depend on frequency and the life, matlab age of the animals or birds, sir.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Sir, thank you. We concluding our session, sir. On behalf of Gujarat Science City, I would like to thankful to you, sir, for such a wonderful, informative and interesting session, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you all participants for kind joining with us. Thank you, sir. Once again, thank you so much.
How
sir.
many participants were there, Pulkit? How many were there?
Sir,
Can you tell me?
just I send one photo in your WhatsApp number, sir.
Good.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Good.
Thank you so much.
Thank
sir.
you very much. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you, sir.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay.